Flight 447 was going down. Both engines dead at 30,000 feet. 285 souls screaming in terror. Captain Sarah Mitchell stayed ice cold. Her hands moved across controls like she was flying a fighter jet, not a commercial airliner. Because 15 years ago she was. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The warning alarms screamed through the cockpit like dying animals. Captain Sarah Mitchell's eyes scanned the instrument panel. Red lights everywhere. Both engines flamed out. Hydraulic pressure dropping. They were falling out of the sky at 800 feet per minute. 30,000 feet of altitude. Maybe 4 minutes before impact. Behind her in the cabin, 285 passengers who trusted her to get them home safely. First Officer Tommy Chin was frozen. Hands gripping his yoke so hard his knuckles were white. His voice cracked. Captain, both engines are gone. We have no thrust. We're going to die. Sarah's voice cut through his panic. Sure. Come. Absolute. No, we're not. Restart procedures. No. Her hands were already moving. Flipping switches. Adjusting trim. Converting the Boeing 777 from a powered aircraft into a very heavy glider. She'd done this before. Not in a commercial jet. But she'd flown unpowered before. Had brought damaged aircraft home when everyone said it was impossible. Chin tried the restart sequence. Nothing. Engines wouldn't catch. We're at 28,000 feet. Still falling. Sarah, we need to declare emergency. Get vectors to nearest airport. Sarah was already 3 steps ahead. She keyed the radio. Mayday, mayday, mayday. United Flight 447. Dual engine failure. 300 miles east of Denver. 28,000 feet and descending. We are attempting restart. Air traffic control came back immediately. Flight 447, roger your mayday. Nearest suitable airport is Denver International. Bearing 270. Distance 140 miles. Can you make it? Sarah did the math in her head. They were gliding. No engines. A 777 had a glide ratio of about 15:1. For every 15 miles forward, they'd lose 1 mile of altitude. They had 28,000 feet. That was about 5 miles of altitude. Times 15. 75 miles of glide range maximum. Denver was 140 miles away. The numbers didn't work. They'd come up 65 miles short. Hit the ground somewhere in the Colorado wilderness. But she didn't say that to the passengers. Didn't say that to Chin. Just kept working the problem. She banked the aircraft. Shallow turn. Every bit of altitude was precious. Couldn't waste it on aggressive maneuvers. The aircraft responded sluggishly without engine power. Like flying a brick with wings. Chin tried the engines again. Still nothing. His voice was shaking. Captain, we're not going to make Denver. We need to find somewhere closer. Sarah scanned her instruments. Pulled up the terrain display. Mountains below them. Lots of mountains. Few flat areas. Fewer airports. There. Small airport. Mountainside strip. 40 miles ahead. Runway length 6,500 feet. Barely long enough. Surrounded by peaks on 3 sides. Approach would be terrifying. She made the decision. Flight 447 changing destination. We're going for Jefferson County Airport. 40 miles ahead. ATC responded quickly. Jefferson County. Captain, that's a small field. Short runway. Difficult approach. Are you sure? Sarah's voice was steel. I'm sure. We won't make Denver. This is our only option. Give me vectors. ATC complied. Flight 447, turn heading 285. Jefferson County is 38 miles. Elevation 9,000 feet. Runway 17. Wind currently 220 at 15 knots. Gusting to 25. Chin looked at her. That runway is barely long enough. And it's at 9,000 feet elevation. Thin air. We'll be coming in fast. Really fast. Sarah nodded. I know. We'll need every inch of that runway. Maybe more. He understood. Maybe more meant they might run off the end. Might crash through the fence. Might not stop before hitting something solid. But it was better than hitting a mountain at 300 knots. Behind them in the cabin, lead flight attendant Jessica Rodriguez was doing her job. Keeping passengers calm. Explaining emergency procedures. Not telling them they might die. The passengers knew anyway. You don't need to be told when both engines quit and the plane starts descending. You can feel it. The silence where engine noise should be. The gentle but persistent downward angle. The fear in the flight attendant's eyes no matter how hard they try to hide it. Sarah spoke on the PA system. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Mitchell. We've experienced dual engine failure. We're gliding toward Jefferson County Airport for an emergency landing. Flight attendants are preparing the cabin for crash landing procedures. Follow their instructions exactly. Brace positions on my command. We're going to get through this. Her voice was so calm, so confident. Like this was a minor inconvenience instead of a potential mass casualty event. Some passengers found comfort in that voice. Others just prayed. 25,000 feet. Still falling. The airport was ahead. Sarah could see it now. Small strip carved into the mountainside. Runway pointing northeast. Mountains rising on both sides. She'd need to thread the needle. Come in between those peaks. Drop fast to lose altitude. Then level out at the last second. Touch down in the first 1,000 feet of runway. Use every inch to stop. No room for error. No second chances. Chin was running checklist. Emergency landing procedures. His training was kicking in. Overcoming the fear. Focusing on the job. Sarah watched him. Good. She needed him functional. She keyed the radio to the cabin crew. Jessica, we're 3 minutes from touchdown. Prepare the cabin. Brace positions in 2 minutes. Jessica's voice came back steady. Understood, Captain. We're ready. 15,000 feet. The airport was getting closer. Sarah extended flaps. Maximum drag. Needed to slow down but couldn't afford to lose too much glide range. The aircraft shuddered. Airframe protesting. She was pushing it to the edge of its envelope. Flying slower than Boeing ever intended at this altitude. But she had to. Coming in too fast meant running off the runway. Coming in too slow meant stalling and crashing short. The margin was razor thin. 10,000 feet. 5 miles out. The approach path looked impossible. Too steep. Too tight. Mountains on both sides like walls. The runway looked like a postage stamp. Chin saw it too. Captain, this is insane. We're not going to make it. Sarah's hands were steady on the controls. Yes, we are. Trust me. Something in her voice made him believe. Made him stop arguing. Made him focus on his job. 5,000 feet. 2 miles out. She was lined up with the runway. Sort of. The approach was steeper than any commercial landing she'd ever done. More like a combat approach. Diving toward the runway. Trading altitude for position. She'd done this in fighters. Dropping fast to avoid ground fire. Pulling up at the last second. Landing on carriers. This was bigger. Heavier. But the principles were the same. 3,000 feet. 1 mile out. She spoke to the cabin. Brace, brace, brace. In the cabin, passengers grabbed their ankles. Put heads down. Flight attendants shouted instructions. Some passengers cried. Some prayed. Some sat silent, accepting whatever came next. The aircraft screamed through the air. No engine noise. Just wind rushing past. The whistle of aerodynamic forces. The sound of falling. 1,000 feet. Quarter mile out. Sarah could see the runway numbers now. 17 painted in white. She started her flare. Pulling back gently on the yoke. Bleeding off the descent rate. Leveling out. The aircraft responded. Nose coming up. Sink rate decreasing. But she was still coming in fast. Really fast. 200 knots. Way too fast for a normal landing. But with no engines and no thrust reversers, she needed that speed. Needed momentum to make it to the runway. The main wheels touched. Art. Passengers slammed forward against their seatbelts. Overhead bins popped open. Bags fell. Someone screamed. Sarah stood on the brakes. Maximum pressure. The tires howled. Smoke poured from the wheels. The aircraft shuddered. Slowing. But not fast enough. They were eating up runway. Already halfway down. Still going over 100 knots. Chin was calling out speeds. 120 knots. 100. 80. The end of the runway was rushing toward them. A fence. Then dirt. Then rocks. 70 knots. 60. The fence was 50 feet away. 40 feet. 30. 50 knots. 20 feet. The aircraft was shaking. Brakes were glowing red hot. Probably going to catch fire. But they were slowing. 40 knots. 10 feet from the fence. 30 knots. 5 feet. 20 knots. 2 feet. 10 knots. The aircraft stopped. The nose wheel was literally touching the fence. 2 more feet and they would have crashed through it. Silence. Complete silence. Then the cockpit erupted. Chin was laughing. Crying. Shouting. We made it. Holy Mother of God, we made it. Sarah sat back in her seat. Hands shaking now. Adrenaline crash hitting hard. She keyed the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, Welcome to Jefferson County Airport. Please remain seated. Emergency crews are approaching. We'll evacuate via slides momentarily. Her voice was still calm, still professional, even though inside she was shaking apart. The evacuation was chaotic but successful. All 285 passengers off safely. Minor injuries. Bumps, bruises, one broken wrist. But everyone alive. Everyone walking away. Fire crews phoned the brakes. Prevented a fire. Towed the aircraft away from the fence. Sarah and Chen were the last ones off. Standing on the runway watching emergency vehicles everywhere. News helicopters circling. This was going to be big news. The NTSB investigation started immediately. They wanted to know everything. How did both engines fail? Why couldn't they restart? How did Sarah manage to glide a 777.40 miles and land it on a short mountain runway? She answered their questions calmly, professionally, explained her decisions, her calculations, her approach. They took notes, recorded everything. One investigator, a former pilot himself, just stared at her. "Ma'am, what you did today was incredible. I've been investigating accidents for 20 years. Never seen anything like this. That landing was impossible." Sarah shrugged. It wasn't impossible, just difficult. The investigator persisted. The approach angle, the speed management, the precision landing. That's not normal commercial pilot skill. Where'd you learn to fly like that? Before Sarah could answer, a voice came from behind. "I can answer that." Everyone turned. 3 men in flight suits. Air Force. Fighter pilots by the patches on their shoulders. The one who spoke was tall, graying hair, eagles on his collar. Colonel rank. He walked over to Sarah. Extended his hand. "Captain Mitchell. Or should I say Lieutenant Commander Mitchell? It's been a long time." Sarah's face went carefully neutral. "Colonel Harrison." "Yes, it has." Harrison turned to the investigators. "You want to know where she learned to fly like that? I'll tell you. 15 years ago, Sarah Mitchell was Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake, United States Navy. Fighter pilot. F-18 Hornet. Top Gun graduate. Class of 2010. Top of her class actually. Flew combat missions in the Persian Gulf. Carrier landings in weather that would ground most pilots. She was one of the best stick-and-rudder pilots I ever saw." The investigators looked shocked. "You were a Navy fighter pilot. Why didn't you mention this?" Sarah met their eyes. "Because it's not relevant. I fly commercial aircraft now. That's the job. My military service ended 15 years ago." Harrison shook his head. "It's absolutely relevant. What you did today, that was fighter pilot instinct. That steep approach. That speed control. That precision landing. You flew this 777 like it was an F-18. Like you were landing on a carrier. That's why everyone's alive." One of the other pilots stepped forward. Younger guy. Captain's bars. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Brad Foster. F-22 pilot. I flew with Colonel Harrison last month at Red Flag exercises. He told us about you. Said you were a legend at Top Gun. Said you could do things with an aircraft that defied physics. We didn't believe him. Thought he was exaggerating. After seeing this landing, I believe him now." The third pilot spoke up. Lieutenant Jake Morrison. Also F-22s. "Ma'am, why'd you leave the Navy? If you were that good, why switch to commercial flying?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she answered. "I had my reasons. Personal reasons. Decided I wanted a different life. Wanted to fly without the combat stress. Without the deployments. Without the constant pressure. Commercial flying is peaceful. Routine. Safe. Or it's supposed to be." Harrison smiled. "Safe. Right. Until both engines quit and you have to dead stick land a 777 on a mountain runway. Then it's not so safe. Then you need every bit of that fighter pilot training." Sarah almost smiled. "Yeah. Then you need it." The investigators wanted more details. What happened at Top Gun? What made you such a standout pilot? Harrison was happy to explain. Top Gun is where we send our best pilots to become even better. To learn advanced tactics. Air combat maneuvering. Most pilots graduate. Some excel. Sarah didn't just excel. She dominated. Set records that still stand. Fastest through the course. Highest scores on tactical exercises. She won the Top Gun trophy. Beat out 40 other pilots. All of them male. All of them convinced they were the best. Foster added his thoughts. "We study her tactics at F-22 training. Her approach to three-dimensional combat. Her situational awareness. Her ability to stay calm under impossible pressure. That's what we saw today. That same calmness. Same precision. Same refusal to quit when everyone else would have given up. Sarah felt uncomfortable with the praise. Gentlemen, I appreciate this. But I just did my job. Got my passengers down safely. That's what pilots are supposed to do. Morrison disagreed. No ma'am. Most pilots would have panicked. Would have made mistakes. Would have crashed that aircraft into a mountain. You stayed calm. Made perfect decisions. Executed flawlessly. That's not just training. That's talent. That's what separates good pilots from great ones. And you're one of the greats. Whether you fly fighters or commercial jets. The story exploded in the media. Every news channel covered it. Commercial pilot saves 285 passengers with emergency landing. Then the military angle came out. Former Top Gun pilot. Fighter ace. The story got bigger. Interviews requested. Talk show appearances. Documentary proposals. Sarah declined them all. She didn't want fame. Didn't want attention. Just wanted to go back to flying. Back to her quiet life. But the airline had other plans. They held a ceremony. Honored her. The CEO himself presented an award. Medal for Exceptional Service. Bravery beyond the call of duty. All 285 passengers were invited. Most came. They cheered when Sarah walked on stage. Some cried. Some hugged her. All thanked her. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, gave her a drawing. Picture of an airplane landing safely. Thank you for saving my mommy. Sarah kept that drawing. Framed it. Hung it in her office. Chin was there too. He'd struggled after the incident. Nightmares. Flashbacks. Classic PTSD. But he was getting help. Working through it. He approached Sarah. Captain, I want to apologize. I froze up there. Should have been more help. Sarah stopped him. Tommy, you did fine. You ran the checklist. Made the calls. Supported me when I needed it. We're a crew. We got everyone down safely. That's what matters. He nodded. Still felt grateful. Still felt like he'd learned something important about grace under pressure. The NTSB released their findings. Both engines failed due to fuel contamination. Bad fuel from the Denver airport. Multiple aircraft affected. Changes were implemented. New fuel testing procedures. Stricter quality control. Flight 447 became a case study. Used in pilot training programs. How to handle dual-engine failure. How to dead-stick land a large aircraft. Sarah's decisions were analyzed. Broken down. Taught to new pilots. But something else happened. The military reached out. Wanted her back. The Navy needed experienced pilots. Especially ones with her skills. They offered her a return to active duty. Commander rank. Choice of assignments. She could teach at Top Gun. Train the next generation. She declined. Politely but firmly. That chapter of my life is closed. I'm happy where I am. They respected her decision but left the door open. If you ever change your mind. 6 months after the incident, Sarah was back in the cockpit. Flying regular routes. Passengers who knew her story would sometimes approach after landing. Thank her. Tell her they felt safer knowing she was flying. She always smiled. Always said thank you. But inside she was just glad to be back to normal. Back to routine. Back to peaceful flying. One day she was deadheading back to base. Sitting in first class as a passenger. Unusual for her. A man sat next to her. Military uniform. Air Force. Stars on his shoulders. General. He introduced himself. General Thomas Reeves. Commander of Air Education and Training Command. I've been wanting to meet you, Captain Mitchell. Sarah was polite. General. What can I do for you? He pulled out a tablet. Showed her a video. Flight 447's landing. Recorded by security cameras. Showed the impossible approach. The perfect touchdown. The emergency stop. I've shown this video to every pilot in our command. Fighter pilots. Bomber pilots. Transport pilots. Everyone. Know what they all say? He paused. They say it's the best piece of flying they've ever seen. Not because of fancy maneuvers. Not because of speed or aggression. Because of decision-making. Because of calmness under pressure. Because of perfect execution when failure meant death. That's what we try to teach. That's what separates adequate pilots from exceptional ones. And you demonstrated it perfectly. Sarah was quiet. The general continued. I'm not here to recruit you. I know you left military service for good reasons. But I want you to know something. You're still making a difference. Still teaching. Your actions that day taught lessons that will save lives. Will make pilots better. Will remind them why excellence matters. So thank you. For your service then. And for your service now. Even if you don't think of it that way. He stood. shook her hand. Left her sitting there thinking. Maybe he was right. Maybe that horrible day when everything went wrong had a purpose. Maybe by doing her job, by refusing to quit, by using every bit of her training and skill, she'd done more than save 285 lives. Maybe she'd inspired others, taught others, shown what was possible when you refused to accept defeat. The aircraft landed smoothly. Sarah gathered her bag, walked through the terminal. Nobody recognized her. She liked it that way. Anonymous, normal. Just another pilot walking through another airport. But somewhere above, in the wild blue, she knew that pilots were training, learning, pushing themselves to be better. Some of them inspired by her story, by what she'd done, by who she was. Commercial pilots saved 285 passengers. Then F-22 pilots revealed her Top Gun past. The story spread. But the real story was simpler. A pilot did her job, used her training, refused to quit, and everyone lived. That's all she'd wanted. That's all she'd needed. The rest, the fame, the recognition, the legend, that was for other people. She just wanted to fly. And she was very, very good at it. Years later, at Top Gun, instructors still showed videos of Flight 447. Still taught the lessons. Still used Sarah Mitchell as an example of what excellence looked like. A new generation of fighter pilots learned from her decisions. Her calmness. Her precision. Some of those pilots went on to save lives themselves. Made impossible landings. Brought damaged aircraft home. Because they'd learned from her. Been inspired by her. Understood that giving up was never an option. And somewhere in a cockpit, flying passengers safely to their destinations, Captain Sarah Mitchell continued doing what she'd always done. Flying with skill. With precision. With absolute commitment to bringing everyone home safely. The mission never changed. Fighter pilot or commercial pilot. The job was the same. Protect the people who trusted you. Use your skills. Do the impossible when necessary. And never ever quit. That was the real legacy. Not the headlines or the medals or the fame. But the quiet dedication to excellence. The refusal to accept failure. The commitment to bringing everyone home. That's what made her a Top Gun pilot. That's what made her a hero. That's what made her one of the best to ever fly.